This Bougainville has mainly been good at flowering this year. An indication that maybe the pot is too small, not enough fertilizer. But I don't want flowers, I want it to develop as a bonsai. So I'm taking off the flowers, I'm pruning it back, and now going to repot it, give it a little bit more root space. As you can probably tell, there is a lot of noise. There's a lot of people mowing their lawn as it's supposed to be on a German Friday evening. But let me just go ahead, take this out of the pot, put it in a new pot, and let's see how it then develops. So it's out of the pot, now it's a matter of removing all these weeds. And then hope that I didn't damage the roots all that much, and I'm just going to slide it into a new pot. Last time that I repotted it was in the middle of winter, and at that time the root ball just came off. So I've just left it in the pot since, even though I didn't have a good pot at the time. Now I'll have a better pot. The weather is supposed to clear up a little bit. Maybe that will work. But all this stuff needs to go out, because that's just competing for nutrients. Now if you look at this, you see that there's some quite nice roots on here. Quite well established roots. Quite a few good side roots. And I don't think this tree will have any problems with what I'm doing right now. I do it now in the growing season. Just because last time I had to do it outside of the growing season in winter. And had lots of problems. So now I'm trying to do it now. And see whether I can stop this from flowering and start this to grow again. Because it hasn't grown all that much this year. It's been wet for the last couple of weeks, but next week it's supposed to clear up, so I hope that this is a good time. Let me just get my new pot and plant this whole thing in there. I've removed all the oxalis that I could find from the old substrate. There's a few bits and roots here still, I'm taking those out. But the base coat here can just be the old substrate, because the tree is actually healthy. I don't see a reason for not using the old substrate in this case. Now I can just plant it in here, trying to have a nice planting angle, and I need to still decide what is the front of the tree. I still don't know whether this or that is the front of the tree. Let me know if you have a suggestion. So drop me a comment if you think that this should be the front, like this, or if this should be the front. I'm personally going for front number one. I think this is the best front, although this cut still needs to close, and it's going to take another decade or so, because they really don't close wounds all that well. So I've mounted the soil here in the middle of the pot, so that now I can take the cutting, because this is actually a cutting, the bottom is completely flat. I can just spread the roots out with my hands, and then gently drop it over the mound. Then I need to check, I want the front of the tree to be over one of the 3 feet, which is right now like this. And this is then how I would like to plant it up. Now it's of course time to do the magic with the wires, which is always tricky. This pot has 4 wiring holes, so I have two wires in here. But because the roots are weak, it might not actually go over the roots. And I'm just going to use this side branch here. It doesn't look good, I agree, but it is a safer option. I need to do it properly with my yin wires in a minute. And the same for the other wire. Actually here, if you look here, there's this little bulge. Maybe I can use that. I think it is still too weak. Let me try. Get these roots a little bit aside, that I don't break them off. And is there something here underneath that is a solid root? Look at that. And I can wire them here together. Keep in mind the wires don't need to be tight. It is just for keeping it in place, right? So no wiggle room, but don't break the tree over it. Now I know there's people who say you shouldn't fertilize trees that have just been repotted. It's the middle of growing season. I want this tree to have fertilizer, so I'm actually fertilizing it right now. And this is organic fertilizer. It needs to decompose before it really does anything. But in the next weeks it will directly have access to the roots, and the roots have access to fertilizer. Then this is all set for a sunny spot. Lots of water, it has fertilizer. It should start growing very soon. Naturally, as always, you wiggle a chopstick between the roots, and with that you move the substrate lower down into the pot, right between the roots, right where it is needed, so that there's no air pockets whatsoever left in the pot. This doesn't have to be pushing it in, right? You're just wiggling the roots side to side a little bit, and that way you create space. Yeah, this is indeed what my workspace looks like in summer. I'm pruning, wiring, repotting, and I only clean up maybe once a week. Right, there you have it. Roughly the front. Or if you drop me a line and you tell me this is the front, this could also be the front. But for me, this is a better front, because the tree really goes back and comes back to you, moving into the top. This I will then have to shorten once it starts to grow again. It's late August, and now I am quite happy to see there is new leaves popping everywhere on this trunk. Operation successful, I would say. Last week of September, and I would say we have been successful in getting this to grow again. The repot was clearly successful, and what's also happening now is that you have these young branches, and these young branches are actually very flexible. One of the problems of this species is that the branches grow really brittle. So if you have them 1 year old, they rather break than that they bend. So if you want your Bougainville to have tight bends, nice curves, smooth lines, then this is roughly the time that it is best to wire them out before they start to lignify. So that's what I'll do now. I'll add 1.5 millimeter of aluminium wire on these branches, place them slightly in an open fan structure so they're ready for winter. And of course, within a couple of weeks after they dry out, they'll start flowering again. As always, before you start wiring, check whether you can actually use every single branch. So this side branch is nice and curved and in place, but here now there is something growing at the base of the branch, and it really needs to come down and out if I can use it. That means that here at the base I'm not going to use this branch, because it has a nice branch there. I'll just take this off and make this as a back branch. And as always, one piece of wire can be used for 2 branches. Just loop it around the trunk line until you get to the branch that you want to wire out. Here there's the next one. Just gently bring it around the branch. Pay attention that you wire gently, slowly and carefully. But if you do that, they are very easy to wire. Same here, around, and around it goes. And now gently bring it down in a smooth line. This is the most tricky one. This can quite easily break here at the connection, and I don't want that to happen. I want this to fill up here. Naturally, if there's no other branch nearby to anchor it to, you can just anchor it to itself or to the trunk line. Just like that. And then wire. This actually is thick wire for this branch. Hope I'm not going to break the branch. If you make a bend, try to put the buds on the outside of the bend, so that if a side branch occurs, it's nice and smooth in the outside curve already. You don't have to wire out then at that point. So, but on the outside of the curve. Also bending a little bit down. Here are 2 buds. I'm going to use this one to stay at the outside, and I'm going to bend back up a little bit. Bend back down and bring the tip back up. Now I don't necessarily want all the branches to grow out, so I'm just going to clip the tips of the higher branches that have formed and hope that they'll then create a few more side branches rather than grow long. Or even that they might not flower. The lower branches I want to fatten up a little bit so they can grow a lot longer. Now this is one of those trees that for me doesn't have a real front. I might actually have to bring this a little bit to the side to really keep this as a front of the tree. It has a nice interesting dead part of the trunk. But it is also looking quite interesting from this side. Then this branch is way too heavy and should move. But for now it is just a nice little plant that flowers prettily in summer. And over the years I'll see where it goes. I don't really have an actual styling plan for this tree. If you have any ideas, if you think, hey, but I have the best front for this tree, drop me a line in the comments. Let me know what you think. How should I develop this? What should be the final shape and the front? For now, this tree is going to get a little bit more fertilizer. It gets to play in the sun outside for a few more weeks before the winter really hits us. And then it's going to go back inside and stand in the windowsill for the rest of the year. And in spring it comes out again. In fact, I told you about flowers. Here already the first flower is starting to develop. All in all, I think this is a nice tree. It is actually the tree that's in the icon of my YouTube channel. So the flowering Bougainville that you see as the little circle in my channel, that's this plant. In spring, it will be flowering again. Maybe even over winter in my windowsill. This was Jelle, growing bonsai with a Bougainville.